First a note, due to my continuing severe bouts of personal depression, we were unable to obtain the services of the actor who normally portrays me on these tapings. So due to those circumstances, tonight I'll be forced to fill in for myself. The news. It both can be said and can't be done, but can always be said to be done. My pants are ablaze for reasons that'd amaze if they I were but able to say. Well, not so much able to say as it is able to comprehend myself. It both can be said and can't be done, but can always be said to be done. Law number 1 for today. The more you understand, the simpler things are. Suggestion pertinent there too. Pretend that they are until you understand it. One man was born into a noisy, busy house, which he disliked, and for years, without realizing it, attempted to move out the inside of his house. I was afraid of that. That for years, without realizing it, he attempted to move out. That is, he attempted to move out the inside of his house. One man began to search for and to call out to, me, where are you? I can't see you. How's this for weird? Although no one else can enlighten you or even tell you how to achieve it, if it wasn't for them trying, you'd never make it. Weird, huh? When I go into the next room to quieten the noisy children, they're never there. On his prepaid tombstone, one man's pre-selected epitaph reads, "When I die, let me be carrying another man's identification." Thinking makes time go by faster. Thinking makes time go by slower. Thinking uses up space. Thinking creates more space. Thinking brings happiness. Thinking brings joy, and hey, you've gone just about far enough with that. There was once a man who swallowed an illusion, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that he forgot he'd swallowed it and began to take it to be a real part of himself. A man had a bird which, the longer he was around it, the more he began to suspect was conscious, and eventually began to suspect that in fact it might even be enlightened. But since the bird never said anything, one man lived in a 2-room house. Repeat after me. There is no real me, only a me imagining there is. Repeat as needed. Yes. There was once a family of ghosts, sheets apparently seen, but nothing inside to be found. Always singing one song while dancing to another. There's the whole problem in 41 words. A teacher asked, "Who can spell conspirator?" "Oh, me, I can," cried one little lad. "T-H-E-M. "Well, no," replied the teacher, "it's M-I-N-D. But still, that was very good." While to himself the lad fiend muttered, "She'll never know that I did it with no one's help but mine." A man in a small town who later heard of this event scratched his head and said, "This is really a small town." One man lived in a 2-room house. You can talk like a mystic. You can dress like a mystic. There are no laws against pretending that make you feel better. Rather than a me, one man had in his head instead a travel agent, business manager, and social secretary. The true immaculate conception is that there is no mother to what the mind perceives. Watch out. Even a broken drunk is sober twice a day. I told you to watch out. There was once a thing that only existed by virtue of the things in it, and the things in it only existed by virtue of the thing. I told you to watch it. Today's news is ancient history that never was. One man who lived in a 2-room house began to suspect something was funny. One man cruised in a submarine in which he believed there was a captain on duty, in charge, on the lookout, and in control. Silly man. I guess that being underwater can distort your thinking. Most talk is redundant because talk is about all that defines what people are. Thus, its repetitiveness helps establish a feeling of individual permanency. That particular mystical order I mentioned to you previously, whose sole teaching was, "Be careful," revived itself some years later with an expanded version, "Be careful and let go." One man who lived in a 2-room house began to suspect something was funny. For better than 300 months did one man think of words as weapons, only later to revise his view to that of words as targets. He says he hopes that for his 50th birthday, at least, to receive some even better news and views. All right, Hudson, you can light the cake now, and be sure to burn up that son of a bitch hiding inside. There's nothing like a little hostile passion to get the mind going, and nothing like it to keep it going, and going, and going, and going. You can talk like a mystic. You can dress like a mystic. But so can a kid in a goofy suit at Disney World, if you catch my point. You must gain affections, then lose affections to be righteously unaffected. A man with a bio is a breathing corpse. You can talk like a mystic. You can dress like a mystic. Even make others take you for a mystic whilst you drown in the distraction of your own 2-room shack. Only the children of an eagle believe that eagling can be taught. There are 2 salient sports available to the mind: chasing phantoms or letting phantoms chase you. One man asked a mystic, "Does effort have a particular smell?" Useless does. In the world of more than's necessary, all is opinion, preference, and what have you. One man who lived in a 2-room house began to suspect that a 2-room house lived in him. Always running one race while plotting another. There it is. Pithy put again. There is you, and there is the thing that thinks it is you. And mystics can be seen as those who take the thing too seriously. A knowing mother's warning. Don't you kids go looking out the windows. You'll get dust in your eyes. So pondered one man. Why the specific criticism of having second thoughts? All thoughts are second thoughts. When the clutch would engage and the gears began to turn, the gears would marvel at their ability to make such decisions and set such power in motion. For exercise, one man took up shadow boxing. Later he changed it to discussing matters with the shadows. He finally moved the activity up to the level of having fistfights with the shadows as a result of their discussions. 'Tis said there was once a mystical order who forbade exercise of any sort. Well, most any sort, if you get the drift. A man thought, if a divided house cannot stand, then why are we all living here? Living here. I said, living here. I heard you. Yes, I was afraid of that. The more intense the effort to subdue the tiger, the more it seems to struggle. You can talk like a mystic. You can dress like a mystic. Only thing is, mystics nowadays go naked and don't say anything. One magician's instructions to his son: be focused, not hocus focused. How's about a blunt version? Without talk and thought, no one has a me. So, even if they apparently do, it still only consists of talk and thought. So ask yourself again, where is a real, substantial me? His new mental tattoo reads, if left alone, all affairs settle themselves. And through his neural hallways he'd pace, constantly repeating, if left alone, if left alone, if left alone. All talk may not be useless, but all talk about non-useless matters certainly is. What greater compliment to a real man than to be called empty-headed? Definition: the mind of a mystic between awakenings. An atomic reactor about to blow. A seemingly humorous idea that triggers a moment of awakening differs from an ordinary joke in that the former cannot be explained if you don't immediately get it. When the monkeys are still, the whole jungle is quiet. One man one day came home too early and found no one there. Finally, he said, success. There's no chance that actor didn't show up, did he, after all? Amidst all these news items tonight were several that you may have heard regarding the question of what is me from everyone's viewpoint. Everyone, but any sane person, I didn't doubt, if you said, is there a me to you? No, oh yeah, sure. And yet, a different version of pointing out that the mind cannot, in any direct manner, see itself. It cannot study itself to any usable ends. A variation of that, you can look at it as an expansion or a contraction of it, can't guarantee it with ordinary minds, but with people who might be interested in this, I would offer a challenge, a rhetorical challenge, and say that you are hard-pressed to find a me. It would be easy enough to dismiss that on the surface and say, well, for better or worse, there's damn sure a me to me. How would you describe me to yourself? How would you feel me? What is it in a person that gives rise to the feeling that there is a me? To some of you, I may be pointing out that which is abundantly obvious, but under all ordinary conditions, routine minds feel as though they, or the organism itself, the human itself, is absolutely chock full of me. Very often, over-chocked. Well, people like to imagine they're suffering. Inexpensive hobby. Well, plus it's one the whole family, if not the whole planet, can enjoy together. But without any attempt at analyzation, people would be inclined, your own mind would be. If I just said, there's an old idea that you hadn't heard in a long time, just popped up several thousand years ago, that one guy that seemed to know something for a while, then suddenly, toward the end of his life, claimed that there was no such thing as me in a person. I'll bet you that if I present it sort of as that, and as though I might be going on to something else, that your mind would go, yeah, that is, wonder what he meant. What happened to the guy? It is, speaking again for everyone rhetorically, I would suggest it is extremely difficult for the mind to even begin to deal with that, and yet it's right in front of you. It does not take any sort of extended effort, as always. We're back to the hard physical example of the folly of going 12 years to school to study psychology when you got you. To tell the mind that there is no me, or to tell a person, but you guys know what I'm talking about, to tell a person that there is no me, I'm not even sure that you could get them to pursue it much further. I'm not sure that they would even consider the matter. But if you insisted that they consider the matter, that there is no me, where would the mind go to start with? Let me cut through some of the fat and go ahead and talk for you. I was just sort of killing time for the last few minutes for everyone to think about it. And think is not really the word under these conditions. It's closer to feel. So let's pretend the TV cameras are not on, and everyone just sit there a second. There seems to be absolutely no doubt that there is something inside of you. That, if your name's Bill or Mary, that there is a Bill or Mary, for better or worse. I know you want to say, but forget all that. See, that would be the mind's way to attempt to get out of this. Because it would think, well, you're saying that there is no me of a totally desirable nature. There is no me as it should be. There is no me that is the perfect model of me. And I know that. What's the point? No. Take the idea that there is no me, period. Forget the qualities. That there is no me, period. As I said, I'm not sure. Well, I would suggest you try to feel it for a second. And if it doesn't strike you tonight, just do it on your own over some period of time until you get some feel for it. Is what is it that you never give any thought to, never any notice to, that is me? You don't have to be saying, I did so and so, but it's just a continual feeling. It is the basis of all your daydreams. It's the basis of everything going through in your own mind that you are doing it, or else you would be greatly disturbed. I mean, should you find yourself walking down the street and you're and suddenly your daydreams take on some other nature, and you have to stop and realize, wait a minute. It's like you being in the wrong position at the highway, and you got your stereo on and a CD, not a CD, but a what you call it, what do you call truckers talk through? CB. Did a CB pick up on that you hear it come through your stereo? That is, if you're walking down the street and you suddenly begin to have someone else's daydreams, you would notice it. My God, what's happened? I'm having somebody else's thoughts. All right. So you see, that would seem to be the proof that it is your thoughts. It is your daydreams. Again, we're not judging quality. Not to say, well, yeah, I have daydreams that shouldn't be me. I don't know where I got them. We're not talking about specifics and preferences. We're talking about everything that goes on in you. Without any doubt, without any analyzation, you assume, properly so at that level, that it's you, for better or worse. But it is a me that's having these thoughts. It is a me that's talking back to television. It is a me that's arguing with something in my mind that somebody said. It is me picturing revenge for somebody over some incident wherein I felt mistreated. It is me dreaming of the future. It is me. For better or worse, it is me in there. There is a way that I still suggest, as always, this gets to is so simple that I hate to overdo it and distract you, because all it is a head-on confrontation to really say, what is me? And try to get a feel. Let me just suggest, the closest thing you can find to a me is its manifestations. You cannot come up with any valid feeling that there is an actual me in here. And yet there must be something, or else you would not have been staggering around all these decades. You could not function as a human. You could not plan. You could not fulfill plans you have made. You could not decide what to do. Your word wouldn't be good. You wouldn't know who you were every day. You wouldn't know where to go to work. You simply could not operate were there not some me inside of you. Again, for better or worse. Don't let it throw you. Don't let it go, well, yeah, sometimes. Nuh-uh. It would appear to be, without any unilateral, on your own attempt to ever look at it. But there would have, just without any question, you would think at the beginning, at first blush, that there is certainly a me of some kind in me and everyone else. If you try to get some picture to yourself, either consider this mentally or emotionally, but if you try and get some picture, whereas you normally think you have some picture. You know, if your name's Bill or whoever you are, you can be standing around just shooting the breeze with somebody, and you make some comment and somebody turns to you, a friend, with just a bit of sarcastic humor. They can say something like, well, hey, we can't take your word. You know, we all know what a bullshitter you are. And you may laugh along like, yeah, as though we were describing that there is a Bill in you, or Fred, whoever you are, that has that potential, that has that inclination, that's just one facet. Bill the bullshitter. But then somebody else, later in the day at the office, somebody come around and say, we're taking a collection with so-and-so's child got hurt in an accident. And so you reach in your pocket and you pull out and hand a 20. Say, yeah, I know her up in bookkeeping. Well, here's a 20. And maybe it's some other person just a few minutes later, and they go, you know, everyone else has been trying to do the best they can, but the most anybody's given has been $1. But I should have known, that's the kind of guy you are. You're really, you think, yeah. There are comments made, and if it were not done externally, it doesn't have to be externally, you're staying around daydreaming, sitting at your desk yourself, and replaying some sort of thing. You're replaying that later. Maybe you'll go upstairs and hit on that new secretary you saw. And you're just running it through, and it's going through, and you're up there, and you say something like, you know, how would you like to go out tonight? She said, well, you know, where? And you go, what do you like to do? And you can just imagine, because you saw her wearing a little fringe jacket, and you just imagine she may say, well, I like to line dance. I like, you know, country clubs. And you go, hey. And you stretch, and you suddenly realize that you know the latest country song. Number one, you just happen to hear it, and you picture yourself saying it. And so to yourself, you got this picture of hip, urban, cowboy type guy who may have great success with that chick upstairs. I guess I got too complicated. The point is, you make is it in your own mind you're playing out those kind of comments, not that somebody else has to say, well, hey, Bill the bullshitter, or hey, Bill, everybody realize what a big-hearted guy. It does not take somebody else. You are constantly inside your own mind commenting on me. That is yourself. You're playing out scenes wherein you imagine someone else. Like the convoluted scene I made up, you're sitting there daydreaming about hitting on that new secretary, and you imagine. You put words in her mind. You've never even spoke to her yet, but you put words in her mind that after you say whatever it is and walk off, she's going to be... it's almost nonverbal, but the point is she's going to be greatly impressed. I mean, she's going to notice you, and you're glad you wore your boots today. Is one of the few days, and you wore your boots, and it was just a miracle you happened to flip to that country station this morning and heard him say, "Here's number one here." But you feel good. You just have a sudden little small twinge and the warmth, like, God, she is. How impressed she will be with me. Don't wander off and lose your place. That all fits. On the basis of that, you would think, well, there is a me, for better or worse. Maybe it's partly bullshit, partly nice guy, partly horny bastard. A person that thinks that there is a me inside is far removed from what this really is. You're far removed from understanding the essence of the nature of the mind. And it takes no study. There's nowhere to go. You don't need any more information. I've overtalked it now. To turn your attention from the noise in the other room and turn it on what appears to be you right now that hears the noise in the other room, whatever the hell all that means, but turn your attention on it and see what you have. You don't have a naked person standing there in the guise of you. You don't have a naked imaginary person. Since I'm the one that brought it up, I'll go ahead and say a little bit about it. No, back to my suggestions. If you take away talk, if you subtract talk from your life, that's all talk, mental, otherwise, thought and talk. If you took that away, what would be me in you then? There is no me without talk. It is one of the reasons that it is so easy to make jokes, to ridicule talk, or it's so, why it is also no challenge at all, even at above a crude, sardonic or sarcastic level, to speak to people on what appears to be a higher level and to point out how useless and redundant most talk is. And I have even joined in on other occasions for other pointing purposes to note, or to try to make you note, that almost all of human talk is redundant. I slipped in a news item tonight that said that most talk is redundant, but there is a reason for it that no one recognizes. Almost all talk is redundant because of the fact that it is talk that defines almost entirely what seems to be a person's me. And therefore the repetitiveness helps establish this feeling of permanency. How many hobbies can you enjoy? How many of the things that you truly enjoy personally that are, without any doubt, are something truly indigenous to you, that may not be unique by any means, but whatever it is that you truly enjoy, music, art, the movies, dining, but something that truly is one of the distinct personal personal pleasures of yours. Notice this. If you have such in your life, something that is really that you could pinpoint, it will be one of the focal points also of your conversation continually. At first, the mind could say, well, that makes sense if that's my main area of interest. If I love music, and I realize that as far as my social conversation, just my ordinary talk is in large part about music. You say, well, it makes sense. Yeah, it makes more sense than you know. Try another slight approach. Anything outside survival instincts. Notice I said dining, I didn't say eating when I gave examples. But anything other than the basic survival instincts, activities. Anything other than that, anything that is unique to man, notice this, you cannot find pleasure therein without talk. You should be able to do this mentally without me having to challenge and say, try it. But how about this? You should be able to do it in your own mind sitting there. Take whatever it is you enjoy. Let's say music or the movies. And imagine never, ever again talking about the movies to anyone else. To anyone, that you never say another word about the movies, period. Can you feel it? And of course, this is not about the movies. This is not about music. This is not about art. It's not about dining. But would that not seem to be whatever it is, if you have one in your life, a prime example of me? Here is a perfect example of me. You say that there is no me inside, or that seems to be what you're saying. But there is a me. If nothing else, besides going through the rituals of life and the things I have to, there is a kind of individual, there's some me in me because I love. You can make it more specific if you can follow what I'm doing, that the mind would try and find its living exemption to my statement. Because you could say, not only do I enjoy music throughout the years, I have it down now. I love, what I truly love is the end of the Baroque era, that whole segue into the classical era. I love, of course, I went through the Haydn and Mozart, but I have now more and more, since they're putting out more and making more and more music recorded and otherwise available to the public, I'm finding composers, Italian, French, Austrian, that I never even heard of. God, I love it. Do you understand? That makes you sound, and we're not bragging now. Forget for good or ill. It's not an attack on someone bragging over their knowledge of music. But your mind would say that is even more detailed, even more specific proof that there is a me. I'm not just some vagueness, there is a real me. Because I can see how my great interest, let us say that you might even be willing to describe your me in terms of its love of music, particularly of the era, the bridge, the Baroque and the classical. And it seems to be without any doubt that that is a me, that there's something in me. Because look around the rest of the world. Many people don't like music. And of those who do, many don't care for classical. And of those who care for classical, very few probably have it narrowed down to just a 20-year period. Or after those that enjoy classical, Baroque would probably be, of the general classified eras, probably the lowest on the list. And you could go, again, we're not talking right or wrong, but to your mind, it would be, well, this is even further proof that I, that is a me, is in there. Because it's not a me that's some way in general with everybody else. Everybody eats, so I eat. Everybody sleeps, I sleep. Let's say 80% of the world likes music, so I can't claim that. But you keep narrowing it down, not just music, then into classical, then into a certain general area, and then into a specific area within an era. That this has to be indicative, this has to be evidence unequivocally of a me, something individual in me. Right? Except for this. Can you hear it? Can you feel it? If you did not talk, about that, if you never talked about it again, that includes to yourself, would you have such an interest? So as not to leave it in any way vague, I'm going to tell you outright, no. No. If you do not talk about your interest, you would have no such interest. If it were not for the manifestation of what appears to be me, the feeling that you have of me would be gone. If that just in some way could be done, of course you wouldn't notice it. Because once it would be gone, you couldn't think about one way or the other. What I'm trying to hint, of course, is some useful purpose to this for people attempting to achieve certain shifts in their own internal state. Consider, tonight I put in a news item for just a statement, that every time I go into the other room to quieten the noisy children, they're not there. Every time, if you know how to do it, if you want to do it, if you've got the ability, even right now, to engage in anything resembling objective thought, non-preferential thinking, then you can see this, right? It only takes a second. But when you look for me, there is no me. There are the manifestations of me. Or every time I go in the other room to quieten the noise of children, they're not there. But if you take that statement as being a valid representation of something, then the noise was there. I did not add that every time I go in there, they're not there, so therefore, I finally figured out it's illusionary. It's an auditory hallucination. No, it's not. Because when you're in another room, you hear them. It's not your imagination, not in the ordinary sense. Yet every time you go in the room to shush them, they're not there. To tell a man that there is no such thing as me makes no sense. Cannot be seen, even if it were true. If it is true, it cannot be seen. Because if you look, well, unless you look, there's always a me there. But if you know how to do it and you look, you're in for a surprise. But then you look off and you hear them again. That was what I asked you 20 minutes ago, or suggested, that instead of a me, look to manifestations. I gave you just a general covering of it, of saying that without thought, without talk of all nature, internal and external, there is no me. I did it through the example of examples. If you look to see what is me, all you can find are manifestations. Which of us ordinary people, I guess they could live for that. They'll go, well, what the hell you want? Well, if you're trying to discover what life's about, the answer to that is a hell of a lot more than that. Because there certainly seems to be manifestations of a me. And it wasn't just music. I mean, look, you dress a certain way. You have a certain style of clothes in general. You drive a certain kind of car, year in and year out, a sports car, a sedan, an RV of some kind. There seems to be a me within you that's manifesting itself. It just seems to be obvious to everyone. I gave you that. They're manifestations. Sweat's a manifestation. Sweat on the human body is a manifestation. I believe some of you filled in your own version, filled in the finish of that. There is no doubt that there are manifestations of individuality, is what it's normally called, but I'm trying to narrow it down. Individuality, as always, the mind gets distracted. Never mind individuality. I'm suggesting to you there is no me in there to be individual. And yet I have just done it for you, pointed out. This time I'll do it with two hands to go along with it. That there are external manifestations. Your dress, your hairstyle, where you live, your taste in almost everything in which you have an interest you would say there is a manifestation of a me. That is not it is not something humans have in general. It is not a collective characteristic of humans. I am the only person, at least in my crowd, who likes this kind of music. I'm the only person in this crowd right now, in my little circle of friends, who has my hair done this particular way, who is dressing a certain way. That's the end of it. What else can you say? If you're an ordinary mind listening to that, there is the ultimate retort. You go, well, you're right. Because you are not, the manifestation is not something that is common to all men. You may not be the only person on the planet doing it, but it is not common. It is not like all humans have 2 arms and 2 legs. But all humans do not, how about a combination? They do not like country and western heavy music, whatever that is. And if they do not drive a homemade convertible, that is an RV that they took the top off of the chainsaw. They do not wear an inverted mohawk haircut, which I'm not going to try to describe. So you can say, based on these manifestations, you cannot tell me that there is no me in me. Oh yeah. Not me tell you, you can find it out. There are manifestations, and that is primarily what talk is for most people. Who would believe that you can open a door in a certain place, and what it is, it's the sound booth where you've been talking from all your life, the me that's the announcer, and you can open it up in a certain way. And I got news for you, sweetheart. There's nobody in there. But then you go, well, that can't be. And there's the proof of it, because you just said that can't be in response to that. So I'm proven wrong again, right?